Murkowski, lady from Alaska, Senator Murkowski. Well, she can't make a negative decision. Could she slow down the rod? Potentially, she could. Senator Lisa Murkowski, her father was the governor of Alaska back 3 governors ago. He is the governor that accompanied Bob Dickinson and I to London to meet Rio, BHP, and Anglo to invite them into the project. And so Rio came in as a shareholder, Anglo came in as a partner. And Senator Murkowski, I mean, she's very political. She, in her heart, wants the project to go ahead. She will say things that appeal to sometimes people's emotions, but that won't do any damage to the project overall. So Senator Murkowski we feel good about. Senator Sullivan. So Murkowski isn't up for election. When a senator's not up for election, they don't do anything. This year, Senator Sullivan up for, and he's not as prestigious or a long-serving. I think Senator Murkowski has had, she's in her 3rd 6-year appointment, and Sullivan's going into his 2nd. So he's got a battle on his hands, and we're trying to work with him to make sure he doesn't go and say something negative. And he won't say don't build the mine, but he might say, well, don't issue the rod until after the election.
Oh my God, can he do that?
Well, he could say that, but would it have any impact? It depends on, whether Trump feels he's going to lose. See, Sullivan's a Republican senator, and is it important that he gets elected? And if he says delay the rod, will that help him get elected?
And it's an age-old practice where when you have constituents, you have important people who support you on 2 sides of an issue, all right? You try to find a way to satisfy them both. Right? You don't choose one or choose the other. You try to satisfy them both. And the way that Senator Murkowski has done that is that when she's asked a question, she says things that don't sound supportive of Pebble. Okay? But when it comes time to vote, when it comes time to do something, she never does anything to hurt Pebble. Okay? Never. All right? So let me give you a very specific example. So last year, the House of Representatives, the National House of Representatives, Congress, passed what's called a rider to an appropriations bill, so legislation, that prevented the federal government from funding the permitting process for Pebble. It would have killed Pebble. It then goes to the United States Senate, and the Senate has to consider this. The committee that it goes to is the committee that's chaired by Lisa Murkowski. Okay? So Lisa Murkowski kills the bill. All right? It doesn't go anywhere. It's the end of it. No problem for us. Dead. But in what's called the committee report, so this is something that's not voted on, it's just a report that's issued by the committee at the time, Lisa Murkowski says, I've got some questions about this Pebble project that I think need to be answered before it can move ahead. So she threw a bone to those constituents that are against us in the committee report, but when it really mattered, she didn't do anything. Well, Lisa Murkowski is very unpredictable, but she had some opportunities to kill this project if she wanted to. She didn't do it. And the most obvious one was the one I described to you, when it was right there before her. All she had to do was kind of close her eyes and let it go past, and she didn't. She stopped it. So Lisa Murkowski is Lisa Murkowski. That's what she does. Now, having said that, she's also, with this president, the single most unpopular senator of the 100. And so the fact that Lisa is saying things that aren't positive is not bad for us with the administration. Okay. So both senators, Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski, also, they didn't misread the press release, misread but that they relied upon a story that was printed in the newspaper that didn't have a named source. In other words, it was a rumor that was printed. And the two senators jumped out and said that they had heard, based on this news story, that the project was being delayed by the Trump administration. And they jumped on that and said that from their perspective was not a bad thing. They were wrong. They're now embarrassed. Since it's the political season, they're still trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do. But an interesting sidelight of that, and this, I wish I could have thought about this, but it's kind of frozen them. They haven't been able to say anything about Pebble since then, because if they come out and say something, they're going to have to admit that they were wrong about what they did. So right now they're just kind of sitting over in a corner and being quiet, okay? And that's if they stay there,
Perfect for quiet.
Gosh, it couldn't be a better thing for us, because these guys, they can't cause us a problem. This is not a process that involves U.S. senators. So we get to our rod, whatever their position is. But if they're not making bad news stories for us, if they're quiet. So right now, it's not such a bad situation for them. They're both in a corner being quiet. Well, right now, he's off in a corner being quiet. So I think that's our plan to work with him, is leave him alone and let him be quiet.
Well, that's a good policy. And you think that's...
It's not, I mean, we're talking, that's an exaggeration. We have a very close relationship with one of his top advisors, who in fact, the guy who was my predecessor, John Shively, rents an apartment in Alaska from Dan Sullivan's state director. And the two of them have worked together for 20 years. So John knows her well and talks to her regularly. And she's embarrassed that the senator got out there with the wrong message. But right now, John, who keeps informed with her, that keeps in touch with her, has been told that he's just going to be quiet. He's going to try to ride out the election and remain quiet.